Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So the first part of our DBT fundamentals is now live on my YouTube channel. So if you have not checked it out, you're definitely missing out some valuable insights and information because we have covered a lot in the first part, exploring the fundamentals, and even we have started with how to install the DBT project itself, right? So please watch the first part and then you can just continue with the second part. So let's get started. Before we dive into how DBT defines and uses models, let's break down the general concept of a data model. So what is a data model? So in the slide, you can see we have a sample data model, right? So you can say a data model is like a blueprint, right? And its meaning can vary depending on the context. So generally, it represents the logical structure of set of data. So whether it's a database table or data frame or any other data structure. So this could be a collection of cars, manufacturers, or details about the different car models. So the data model also illustrates how the data and its various components relate to each other. For example, think about the various features of car that it includes number of doors, fuel efficiency, or whether it's electric car or not, right? And these attributes help define a data model, making it easier for user to collaborate and understand the data. So in our example, so we have created a simple data model for cars, including attributes like make, model, number of doors, and the fuel type. So these agreed upon set of features facilitates collaboration among the users, programs, and others when discussing about cars. So however, it's important to note that these different attributes can be chosen to define models, and this selection impacts the effectiveness of the model. So now let's create a model using the DBT project. And first, let's understand in DBT what actually the model is. So now let's understand what actually the DBT models is, right? So in the DBT project, so this is the snapshot of our DBT project. So we have different folders in our project, right? So we have analysis folder, logs folder, macros, models, seeds, snapshots, and test, right? So we have a models folder. So for first, let's understand what actually the DBT models is. So in short, so in the models directory, we have a .sql files. So any file which is added inside the models directory with .sql extension is called a model. So inside that model, so we will be writing a select statements, and this select statement will transform the data which is present in our data warehouse. So, so in this snapshot, you can see in the models, we have first DBT model and second DBT model. So I can just call them as a models, right? So instead of referring to a SQL files or SQL scripts, okay. So I will be telling that as a models, because whatever the files with .sql extension you're gonna add inside the models folder, so we call that as a models itself, right? And so in short, so models are the select statements that transform the raw data, right? And it is stored inside the models directory and have a .sql extension. So now let's try to do the hands-on. So now let's talk about DBT profiles file, right? So DBT profile file, it's actually named as profiles.ml file, right? So it's a configuration file that defines how DBT connects to your data warehouse. So it contains a crucial information like connection details, credentials, and the configurations that allow DBT to interact with your database. So now let me open this profiles file, right? And inside this profile file, you can define the multiple profiles, so each representing the connection to your specific database. So these profiles hold the essential settings required for the DBT to establish a connection. So next important configuration here is target, right? And here this target is a heart of each profile. So target specify the connection details for this particular database. So it includes the type of database, whether it's Postgres, Snowflake, or BigQuery, or any other data warehouse you're connecting with. And it includes the host, user, password, and other necessary connection parameters. So in my case, so I have multiple profiles here, right? So if you're just doing for the first time, you'll be seeing just only one connection. So for our project, so we have created a project called DBT uh, uh, I'll just check. So the profiles is DBT draw database is DemoDB. Yes, so this is what we have created, right? So outputs. Yeah, so this is the project, right? So we have, you can see like this is the project name, right? So these are the other different projects, but if you remember, this is what the project name I've given like when configuring the DBT project, right? And for this particular project, this is the connection details like password, account, password, role, schema, threads, type, right? Username, the warehouse which I've created, connected, right? And the target. Similarly, if you can just play with the different like if you have multiple profiles, I mean like multiple connection details, so all the details will be added inside this profiles.ml file. Okay, so even you can set the default block default settings. Okay, so we'll not talk about this, we can discuss that later on in our course. Fine. And so this is the other project, and you can see the connection details for this particular project. Okay, so what you need to remember is, so whenever if you want to modify your connection details, you can just come to this profiles.ml file. So where you can find this file, so I'll just show that. So this file will be present inside the user. So right now I'm in the C drive, users and username and the .dbt. So inside the .dbt you can find the .user file as well as the profile files. So if you want to modify the for example, if I just go to my command line and type here dbt debug, okay, so the dbt debug will establish the connection to my data warehouse based on the settings whatever I have provided while creating this particular project, right? So you can need the same settings, username, database, as well as whatever it is, right? So if I want to modify, so I can just go to this particular file and modify based on the database and the schema. So this is all about the profiles.ml file. Hello everyone. So in this section, let's understand what is a DBT project.ml file is, because DBT project is a very important file. So this file contains all the project configuration, right? You can say it is a backbone of your DBT project because it contains various key components, and let's understand like what are the different components it consists of. Okay, so right now I have opened my project, that is DBT Jan Pro, right? Inside this project, we have this DBT project.ml file. So at the core, the project.ml file helps define the fundamental project configurations, right? And we have a different fields here, like we have a name, a version, config version, right? So the name field, so this is where you specify the name of your DBT project. So right now I have specified as DBT Jan Pro, right? And so it's good practice to choose a name that reflects the purpose or the domain of your project. So this is for the practice purpose, so we have just given just a random name. Okay, so next we have a version. So this field specifies the version of the DBT your project is using. Okay, so this is what the version field is. So next we have a profile field. So here you define the name of the profile to be used for this project, right? And this is crucial for establishing a connection to your databases. So already we have seen about a profile file, right? So basically dbt project.ml file make a connection to your profile, right? And with this name, that is dbt Jan Pro. So apart from this, we have source configurations, like we have source path, analysis path, models path, test path, right? This basically defines the directories where the DBT will look for your source files, right? So if I'm talking about model path, it will look for the models in your directory. If you are talking about the analysis path, so it will look into the analysis folder. If you have any seeds, okay, so it will look into the seeds folder. And if you have any snapshots, it will look into the snapshot folder. So this basically defines the path to your DBT project. So even we have so and apart from this, if we just scroll down this dbt project.ml file, and we have the models, right? And so here, so inside the models, this is the same project name. So make sure, so whenever you're changing project name inside the dbt project.ml file, you need to change at two places. One is at the top, right? That is name of your project, and one at this particular section, right? So this is what you need to change the name in case if you are changing the project name. And so right now we have only the one model that is hello world model by the DBT. So inside the models we have a example folder. So inside the models is referring to the example folder, and and we'll learn all about this metallization going forward. Okay, so I just wanted to explain the skeleton of DBT project.ml file. So if you want to modify any configurations with respect to DBT project, so this is the place you will be doing all those things. So this is all about DBT project.ml file. Hello everyone, welcome back. Now let's load the data into our data warehouse, right? So I'll be using a sample data which is provided by the DBT itself, right? So we'll be using the same data throughout the entire course to learn the various concepts in the DBT. Fine. So let me execute this, then I'll explain to you. Fine. So first I'm just creating a warehouse called transforming. So then I have a database called raw and database called analytics. So we are creating a two databases because so first in the raw database we'll have all the raw data files. Okay. And after performing the transformation, we'll keep that in analytics section. Fine. Analytics database. So then I'm creating a two schema. So one is the Jaffel shop schema and one is called Stripe. Okay, this is for the payments. Okay, so I'm creating a warehouse, databases, and the schemas. Okay, so let me execute this files. So let me execute this. Yes, so it got executed. So let me refresh this. Yes, you can see analytics database got created, and by default we have information schema and public schema, and the raw database is also created. So here we have Jaffel shop schema as well as Stripe schema, right? So and apart from this we have a default schema which is created by the Snowflake itself, that is public and information schema. So the next step is to create tables, that is let's create a table and load the data sets into that table. Fine. We'll be adding a three tables. Okay. So first is the customers table. So next we have orders table and we have payments table. Fine. So this is the three data, raw data which we'll be using throughout the course. So first let's load the customers data, okay, into the table. So before loading we need to create a table, right? So this is a command to create a table. So I'm just creating a table inside a raw database, Jaffel shop schema, and the table name is customers. So in the customers I have ID, first name, and the last name. Okay, so let me run this. Yes, it got created. So now let's use the copy into command to load the data into the customers table. So I'm just using the copy into command, and the data is from the S3, and this S3 is provided by the DBT itself. Okay, here we no need to enter any credentials, directly we can access this S3 bucket to load the data into customers table. Fine, and let me execute this. Yes, so data got loaded. You can see we have 100 records. Okay, similarly now let's create a table for the orders. So let me execute this. Okay, so next similarly we'll do the copy into command into the orders table. Fine. So now let's create a payments table, and now let's do the copy into command into the payments table. Yes, so we have loaded the data. So now let's do the select star to check like if we have a data inside this table. So first is customers. So in the customers we have ID, first name, and the last name, right? And now let's go to the orders. So these all are the raw data files. Okay, so I have ID, I have user ID, order date, status, and ETL loaded is generated by the Snowflake itself. Okay, so you can see it got loaded. For example, this record got loaded on this. Okay, so when we learn all about this SCD, okay, so this is where we'll be using all these columns. Fine. So next is payments. Yes, so this is the payments table. So we have ID, order ID, payment method, status, amount, created, and even batch data. Okay, so these are the data which we have loaded into our tables. Okay, So now let's see like how we can create a models and how we can transform this data. So now let's change our DBT profiles.ml file, because we have updated our data warehouse with the sample data set, right? So let me go and update that particular file. So let me go to my profiles, and this is my project. So my account database, I need to change the database. Let me change the database to uh, so let me show you. So if I just go here, so I have changed the database. I have updated all the raw files inside the raw, right? So inside the Joffel shop schema, I have the different tables, that is customers and orders. Let me update the database to raw. Okay, so let me change that first. So let me go and instead of DBT raw, so let me change this to raw. Sorry, not this one. So database to raw. Okay, and password will remain same. Role is account admin. Schema, so inside the raw, so let me show you the schema. So I'm using the schema called Jaffle Shop, right? So it's Jaffle. So let me update properly. J Jaffle Jaffle underscore shop. Okay, and threads 4, type user and password remain same. We do the control S, right? And let me go to the CLI and let me execute. Let me do this DBT debug once. Okay, so let me save once again. So I'll do control S and go to file and let me execute this DBT debug. So DBT debug will just check my connection with respect to the database and schema. Yes, it got connected to the database raw and JavaScript schema. So all set. So now let's execute our sample DBT models provided by the DBT. So now let's execute the models given by the DBT project itself, that is the sample models. So we have two models inside this example folder, right? So we have first DBT model and my second DBT model, right? So this is the simple select statement, right? Simple CT, okay? And let's execute this models and see the output in our data warehouse. So even I'll just go to my data warehouse. So we have set that with the raw database, right? So if you remember, this is what the connection details we have set, and we have Jaffle shop. We have only two tables here, right? So I have opened my project in the VS Code. So I'm using the git bash here, right? So if I do ls, so I have all the files and folders, and if I do a DBT debug just to check the connection, as so let's check the connection. Yes, you can see all the connections is set. Similarly, like if you're not using VS Code, you can even do that in the Jupyter, sorry, Anaconda Navigator as well. Fine. So, but I'm executing same project in the inside the VS Code terminal. Fine. So the first command to execute the models inside the DBT is DBT run. Okay. So as soon as I give the DBT run, so whatever the models present inside the models directory will be executed. So let's verify that. Just enter DBT run, enter DBT run and hit enter. So it should execute both the models, that is my first DBT model as well my second DBT model. So let me enlarge this. Yes. So now let's see what happened here, right? So as soon as I give the DBT run, right, it's running with DBT 1.7.5. This is what the version it got installed with, right? And concurrency, if you remember, we have set that to 4. So it's using the 4. Then you can see like it got founded that inside the Jaffle shop schema, because in the project configuration we have set the schema inside as a Jaffle shop. So inside the Jaffle shop, my first DBT model got executed as well as my second DBT model. And even we got a stats that, so there is a one table model and one view. So why I got one model build as table and why it is view, will explore that later on. Okay, so we are just learning how to execute the DBT model, that is a hello world models provided by the DBT. And let's verify that in the Snowflake. So now if I go to my Snowflake account and let's refresh this, and so if you observe inside the Jaffle shop, So we have the first DBT model, which is built as view, right? So, my first DBT model is built as view, and let me close this. My first DBT model is built as view, and if is built as table, and my second DBT model is built as view, right? So even I can do the select star as well. So it's just a simple CT. So if I do select star from this, and let me execute this. So you can see, so based on the query, based on the model, I got this an output. So similarly, let me execute the my second DBT model. So just verify this. If it is, just make sure that this is working. So if this working, it's that your project is set up and you can start writing start writing the models in the models directory. Okay, so everything is set. Everything is working fine, and yes, we are good. So we have successfully executed our hello world models provided by the DBT project. So now let's create our models based on the sample data set, and let's create the models from scratch. Okay, so now let's create our first model. So whatever the data sets we have loaded so far, right? So we have Jaffel shop schema, and we have the customers, right? So let me execute this once again. So we have a customers table, right? And we have orders table inside the Jaffel shop schema. And then we have a payments table as well. Uh, payments table inside the Stripe. Okay. So now let's create one simple model using three data sets, whatever we have. Okay. So already I have the query. So this is what the query is. Okay, so these are the three simple CTs. So we have customer CT, where I'm selecting the customer ID, first name, and the last name from the raw database, Jaffle shop schema, and the customers table. Then I have order CT, so where I'm selecting order ID, customer ID, order date, as well as status from the orders table from the Jaffle shop schema. So then I'm just combining the customer orders, right? I'm just uh, grouping by customer ID. So where I'm taking the min order date, max, the first order date, the most recent orders, as well as the number of orders by each customers with respect to customer ID. Okay, so then I have final CT, so where I'm just performing the left join on this customer orders using customer ID. So here I'm selecting again. So this will be my final CTs where I'll be doing the select star from final. So I'll be having customer ID, first name, last name. Then I'll have first order date, most recent orders, and the number of orders. So basically, customer wise, I'll be having the records of by each customer, the number of orders made by each customer, then what was the most recent order made by that customer, and the first order date. Okay, so this is what my simple model is. Fine, so let me copy this model. So first let me create this model in our project. So let me select the name of the project, sorry, name of the model, that is dim customers.sql. So let me open the VS Code, and this is the models directory. So here I'll just create a new file. So I'll just name this file as dimcustomers.sql. Hit enter. So you can see right now I'm not in the examples folder. Okay. So right now I'm just in the models directory, that is dimcustomers.sql. Fine. So let me paste this. So let me copy this everything. E code and do control V. Fine. So it's the same thing. Okay, so let me do control S. So I have just written my model. So let me execute this particular model. So what is the command to execute the models? So it's called dbt run. Okay, so we are learning a first dbt command. So if I want to execute all the models in my models directory, so the command is dbt run. So as soon as you give dbt run, so it will point to the models directory and execute all the models which is present inside this, right? So let me execute that. So I'm just executing from Anaconda prompt. So even you can just execute parallelly from this terminal also. Fine, anything is fine. So let me do dir if I'm in project folder. Yes. So even let's do DBT debug just to check if everything is working fine. Oh, yes. Okay. Jaffel shop. And a scheme I've given the Jaffel shop. So all my models will be built inside Jaffel shop. Okay. So later in the course, we'll try to put all the models, build models in some other database. Okay. So we'll look into that later on. Fine. So all checks boxed to the command is dbt run. So you can see it found three models and it's completed successfully. Okay. So now let's get into the snowflake and let me refresh. And if I expand my Jaffel shop inside the views, okay, so you can see like the dim customers has built. So why it has built as view, okay, so I'll explain like why it has default build as view and how we can just change the materialization. Okay, we'll be learning that slowly, right? So now let's check the records. So let me just place name in the editor, and if I do select star from raw Jaffel shop dim customers, let me run this. You can see I have customer ID, first name, last name, and the first order date by this customer is this, and the most recent order is this, and the number of orders made by this customer is two. Okay, so we have built very simple model. Okay, so this is all about the models. Okay, so in this particular session, we have just understood about the models, how to create models, how to run the model. Okay, so in upcoming sessions we'll get into more depth. Okay, we'll understand more aspects of like sources, what is seeds, what is metallization. Okay, so and yes, so we'll be learning that in our upcoming sessions.